Here? Yeah, right there. All right, thank you. And while I have the floor, I'd also like to generally thank all the conference organizers for putting together such a nice event every year that I really enjoy coming to and seeing what everybody's doing. So I'll do a quick little introduction to how I come to be speaking about this topic. I led the software development for a space subsystem that ended up working pretty well. So other missions inherited that and used it. So it became kind of a de facto product line. And as a result, we had a need to coordinate what was going on in these different missions implementations of this software, because none of them took it just as is. They always had some modifications. And I got some support along with others from the NASA Software Assurance Research Program to sort of take a step back and see if we could apply some product line ideas, come up with some methods that would work, especially for relatively small tasks. This was a 5 software engineer development kind of effort. And so we didn't want a lot of heavyweight product line methodologies and techniques. We wanted to see if we could get some quick and easy things. So we did investigate a number of aspects. This is just one of them. Milton Lavin, who's here today, helped me with a lot of the different issues involved. This particular thing here is mostly just my fault, though. And the core of this product line issue tracking concept is really, as they say on the internet, one weird trick. So that'll come up in a couple of slides, and as long as you get that weird trick, then you can kind of zone out and start thinking about menus and so on as we're getting towards lunchtime. So the idea here is we wanted to be, we were using the JIRA issue tracking system that's easily available at JPL and has become very popular in order to track issues across the product line. Rather than just for multiple issues within one project, we wanted to track them across multiple projects. And there needed to be a little bit of thought about how to effectively use it for that purpose. So again, the primary goal was to track the issues across different products, which is not the typical usage of the issue tracking systems. Usually in the issue tracking system, you say, well, which project are we in, and then what issues does that project have that we are tracking? Because I wanted to know across products what's going on, I really wanted to be able to say, here's an issue, which projects have this issue? Which projects have fixed this issue? Which projects have not fixed this issue? Which is important to track because, as we know, with the flight projects, once they're flying, they're quite conservative. So if we find an issue on the ground, or if a different project finds the issue even in flight, an older project might not be interested in picking up that change. So we wanted a way to see, well, who's actually taken fixes, who hasn't taken fixes, what good ideas have we come up with on the ground for future improvement that different programs might be interested in when they do come to the point of wanting to do a software update. Originally, I was tracking this kind of stuff in a spreadsheet, which was not very scalable at all. That quickly became hopeless. I also wanted to avoid having to customize JIRA in order to accomplish this goal, because that just makes it hard for other projects to adopt it. I wanted to just be able to say, here, you've got JIRA. If you just use it this way, then you can get these benefits. So you're not expected to be able to see this, but if you've used JIRA yourself, you can get an idea. This is kind of the way it generally looks, except this is a customized dashboard, which is a feature that JIRA provides. You can set up your own dashboards. I'll zoom in to the interesting part of this on the next slide, which you can almost see, but not quite. But anyway, I'll talk about mainly the things in the bullets, which are the key points. So the idea is that we've got a way here to label the different products that are in the product line. And for each of those products, I can see which issues that product has. these are not disjoint. There's just one group of issues, which is about 270 issues, well, 255 at the point that this was done. And each product has a certain number of those that have been determined to be applicable to it. You can also subdivide it because each issue is identified with a component of the system. You can subdivide and see, well, okay, how many issues does each component of the system have in it? And there's another division among products down here. And the idea is that there's two different sorts of issues, because once an issue is discovered, it's usually discovered by people working on one particular project. And so you know that the issue applies to that particular product, but you don't necessarily know if that issue actually applies to other products in the line because of the modifications that have occurred between them or of differing use cases among the missions that are using these things. So this top category allows you to separately categorize issues that have not yet been determined. Someone from this project has not yet looked to see if this issue really applies to them or not. So that gives you two categories of ones where you say, hey, this popped up. Maybe it applies to this project, but somebody on that project should really look at it to see if it's really a concern for them or not a concern for them. Okay, here is the one weird trick. And the one weird trick does not necessarily apply only to JIRA. I've been using this in JIRA and it supports this mechanism, but if some other product line issue or some other issue tracking system supported these key points, then you could use it. At the time that I was working this out, which was over a year ago now, I looked at some others that were sort of popular like Track or Bugzilla, and they didn't support all of these things, but that may have changed in the meantime. And I didn't try to do an exhaustive examination of various issue trackers either. So the true key point, the one really weird trick is instead of using the version field of your JIRA ticket to say this is the version of software, the version of one particular product that this applies to, I use the version to mean which product is it. Which member of the product line. So that means I'm not trying to track release numbers in this scale, but across the product line you may not really need to do that. So JIRA has actually two version fields that you can use in its standard tickets. One is called effects version and the other one is called one is called effects version, which in some JIRA windows is also called raised in version. And the way I interpret that is the thing to do if you put an issue as marked with a product in that version is what you need to do is determine if it affects that product. The other JIRA field is called the fix version, which I guess on some JIRA windows is called fixed in version. And that's the field that I use to indicate, yes, we have determined that the issue is an issue for this particular product. Therefore, the thing that we should do is fix it. JIRA also provides the capability to have what they call subtasks of a main task, and I use those subtasks or sub-issues to track the progress for each specific product of how things are going. So I create a sub-issue for each product once we determine the issue relates to that product, and then we can track the progress of that particular product's handling of the issue in the sub-issue. You could also, and we have done this, a couple of projects already had their own JIRA systems where they tracked things in excruciating detail, and they can use those in parallel, where this just kind of coordinates, and then when they want to take it on themselves, they can track it in more detail in their own JIRA system. So here's one sample issue and how that would look using this mechanism. And again, if you use JIRA, this should not look too startling. But the key is that in the effects version field, where ordinarily you would say, well, we found this in revision 2.1 of our software. Instead, I'm saying, well, we don't know if this version affects, but we would like to see if it affects the Connect project, the Maven project, the MRO Electra project, and some other projects that are members of this product line. The fix version are products where we know that this issue applies, which for this particular issue would be MRO Electra and MSL Electrolyte, because that's where the issue was discovered, and because I am personally the lead of both of those things, I know it's going to apply to the other one. The other ones, because I was not personally leading those, I didn't want to say, yes, I know it applies to them. So we still have to determine the applicability there. Now, there might be some products that you know they don't have the issue already, or it's been determined that they don't. So those don't show up in either of those labels. But depending on how you decide to use the system in detail, they might have subtasks to document why they don't have the problem. You might have put it in the unknown applicability effects version list initially. Someone looked at it and said, oh, that doesn't apply. And so basically you removed it from this list, perhaps with a subtask saying, here's the tests we did that show that's not a problem for our particular project. So in order to achieve this, the issue tracker that you're using has to allow you to list multiple versions in these fields. That's an issue for a problem for some issue trackers that only let you assign one version. JIRA, however, lets you put as many versions as you want in these fields, so that lends itself to this mechanism. JIRA also allows you to create subtasks under the main tasks. That's not completely necessary, but it's convenient so that you can put a subtask for each different product and say, well, here's what that product is doing about this. If you're going to use the subtasks that way, the issues have types such as bug, task, improvement, things like that. It's useful to have the subtask issue types be distinct from the main issue types so that you can do some sorts on that and not have to work your way through all the sub-issues when what you really want is a list of, here, what are all the main issues? What are the observed problems? Let's look at that first before we worry about how the sub-issues have divided them up amongst the products. So here's an example of that with a task with the subtasks. In this particular case, we've determined the applicability of this issue to all the different products. So there aren't any left where what we need to do is see if it affects them. As a result, instead we have a list of a bunch of projects that are known to have the issue, or in some cases there are a couple of issues, and you can't see that directly from this view, but some of these subtasks for the different products, they've all been closed, but some of them, if you drill down farther, you can see that they've been closed with a resolution of not applicable, meaning that we looked at it, it doesn't have meaning for this because of differences in the system. And again, using the filtering, you can select between the standard issue types, which are the main issues, versus the subtask issue types. And once you create useful filters for these issues, then the JIRA system allows you to share those issues with people on the project or people on multiple projects or everyone around if you feel like it. So that's a very handy feature so that sort of the administrator of this system can set the thing up and then people can just pick up these filters instead of having to come up with the views on their own. This just shows the subtask issues compared to the main issues. And again, once you have created some shared filters that divide up the issues in different ways, then you can use those shared filters to create customized dashboards, which then in turn you can share so that you can give people an easy view of what's going on across all the projects, which is what I showed you at first, and I'll show you a little more now again. So this is sort of similar to that original slide that you couldn't read. This slide that you can't read represents viewing all of the subtasks rather than all of the main tasks. And the labels here are to kind of show how you can create the dashboard, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in another slide. But you can add various gadgets or panels to your dashboard window. Particularly common types are issue statistics, where you can see how many are open and closed and things like that. That's kind of everybody uses that. All useful for this issue tracking system are these 2D filter stats, where you can pick two different aspects of an issue and it gives you a little chart. For instance, you can have the different projects as one of the dimensions and the issue status, open, closed, and so on as the other dimension, so that you can get a quick overview of, well, which projects have how many issues that they're dealing with, and then you can drill down to see what they are and what the status is. Zooming in that a little more, this one you can almost actually read. Again, just showing that you can see the different products and the status of different issues. And in the live system, you could click on these numbers to see, okay, what issues is that particular product dealing with at this time? Or in the more global view, you could see which issues has this project not yet evaluated, so that we don't know whether it might have them or not. This is how you would set up your dashboard with fields. Again, you can add the different gadget panels. You can pick up one of your predefined shared filters and say, okay, I want to display information that filter has separated out, and I want to display it in this particular format where I select my two axes, and you have various options about how often you want that to update and other things like that. If you were super excited about JIRA and were willing to customize, you could go in and make your own gadgets to display things in different ways. But again, I was not interested in going through that because I didn't feel like it would be easy to advertise to people. And similarly, once you have created the dashboard, much like you can share the filters, you can share the entire dashboard. So if a new user comes along, you simply say, okay, go in and pick up these shared filters and shared dashboards, and then they can get the view that you've set up to be convenient for them. Okay, again, going back to the customizations, I created shared filters and dashboards, but that's not really much of a customization because JIRA out of the box allows you to just do that, and any individual user can do that on their own. I had to add, the names of the products as versions and all the components, but again, your local JIRA project administrator can add all those. That's typical. People do that all the time. I did have to add the issue resolution not applicable because I really wanted that because it's key in a product line, but the stock issue types that were provided, none of them sounded like not applicable. So that one I had to get the full JIRA installation administrator to add that issue type. But that wasn't that difficult, and once I've done that, that is available to all the JPL users of the institutional JIRA system. And again, there might be other customizations that would be nice, like renaming the fields from effects versions to something that is more product line oriented. But again, I wanted to try to show that you don't need to do a lot of customizing. All you need to know is the one weird trick, and as long as you work your mind properly, you can use JIRA. And for more information, this particular web address is definitely not accessible to everyone. There's probably only 2 people in here that it might be accessible to, because this is locked down to some of the projects that are involved. However, the detailed instructions about how to use this that I put onto the wiki, I've copied for JPL people. They can get at it from JPL Wired, which I'm not sure anybody at JPL actually uses, but it was an attempt to set up a JPL Wikipedia, in effect. and it's there. If you type wired on the JPL network, you'll get a search page, and if you search for issue tracking or product line, you'll get detailed instructions about this mechanism. Or, of course, you can ask me. I have to run off to meetings right after this, but I'll hopefully be back for the end of the day talks and the dinner, and I'll be around tomorrow morning. Thank you.
This is more like an issue kind of identification tool, not the resolution tool.
No, it's for resolution also. I mean,
so how do you go about vetting the process? I mean, who does?
Well, if you're trying to run an organized product line, ideally you would have some sort of system engineer or somebody who's kind of overseeing the overall product line, who would check that, okay, here's an issue. However, in our case, we're not quite that organized yet with these particular products in this example. So it's kind of like individuals are going in their projects and dealing with the issue in their stovepipe. However, this view allows you to see, if somebody else in a stovepipe says, well, we just ran across this, they can see if it's already been found. They can see if somebody else has already dealt with it. So they can go in the issue tracking system and see how did they deal with it, or at the very least identify who dealt with it so I can go and ask them what they did.
Okay. And is there, issues can have dependency or relationship. Is there like a tab or something like to indicate that?
Yeah, in the JIRA system as a standard, I'm not trying to really give a JIRA tutorial, but you can link issues to each other. So that capability can be used as much as you want to sprinkle around this to link the issues to each other.
Right. Thank you.
Where else is there? 1, 2, 3.
I have a line of sight issue.
Thank you. Obviously, this would be a great help to a product line manager, and Ken, I think, is the de facto product line manager of the electro-radio system. But I'm wondering, Ken, if you could comment on how another project with which you have not been keenly involved, like Maven, for example, use this to quickly identify something that they needed to respond to, or perhaps another project.
Well, yeah, again, the idea would be that if you've got the things recorded in this system, there's a couple ways that people can find out about it if they wonder, has something been found elsewhere. One is, of course, they can just go and look through it. Another one is you can set people up for notifications to get emails if there are certain activities in the JIRA system. So you can set things up like that. And of course, if you do have the sort of overarching product line architect or manager, they can look at things and say, oh, you folks should really look at this issue because it seems like it probably applies to you. So there's a variety of mechanisms that you can use for that, and which ones are most useful in your environment will depend.
Others? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.